Welcome back to Pixels to Politics. I'm Blackheart, joined by Dougie and Bray today. We'll be diving into the latest developments in the Middle East, including Israel's bombing of Rafah and their potential invasion. We'll also touch on the protests erupting on college campuses, France's president suggesting to send troops to Ukraine, and a bunch of other topics. So join us as we unpack these critical events and their implications. Dougie, Bray, how are you both doing today?
Another day, another bombing. Seems
Oh
uh
God.
seems Hamas has accepted ceasefire, but Israel has not. They're still on the fence about it because they're continuing with the invasion of Rafah. Not really sure how to feel about that. I mean, considering we're not the ones being bombed, it's kind of hard to have an opinion on it. Other than, well, they just don't care at this point, and they're just going all out for the most part. I feel like a ceasefire is hopeful at best. I don't think that they're going to kowtow to any ceasefire at this point. But you never know. Maybe they'll surprise everyone. Maybe they'll just bomb half of Gaza and then call a ceasefire, and then just wait later to do the other half.
I think
What do you think, Doug?
I think they've already bombed half. I think we're beyond half at this point.
You think
Half has
so?
been bombed. Yes, at least. But I don't think there's just no way a ceasefire will ever make sense because Hamas refuses to give up the hostages. They need them, otherwise they'll die anyway. And
Yeah.
Israel refuses to do any deal that doesn't include all the hostages being released. So these are two very clear red lines that both sides have, and neither's budging. There was a lot of um, there are a lot of countries at the start who've kind of stepped in and it was like, okay, they'll release this amount of hostages and you know just stop bombing them for a little longer. And I think now we're just at the point where they don't care anymore. Israel doesn't care, and uh, in contrast to all other countries where citizens are protesting to make a ceasefire happen, in Israel they're protesting to get the hostages released. Like, do more now. Free them, free them. Like, that's what's going on there. So I mean, it's just their view of um the war and what they need to do next is very different from I think everybody else's.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's you have something to say, Ryan?
I was gonna say, yeah, usually when you're in the war, your perspective is just a little bit different.
Just a tad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and for them, it's like they've been bombing hospitals and saying that Hamas is inside the hospitals, and I'm not even certain that they're inside the hospital still at this point. And I've seen videos of it happening too, or they'll get bombed or attacked, and it doesn't even look like there's anyone that's armed in there. It's just hospital staff. So I don't even know if Israel really cares about the PR at this point, or they're just going to just destroy whatever they see fit to destroy and just leave the damage control for later, or what they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would have a feeling that they're going after those targets because they have uh, intelligence that says that they are like being used for purposes. The problem with where they're going after though is that like Hamas has had so many years to like develop networks, like underground networks of like where to go, and they are only able to know with a certain degree of certainty that this is what a building's being used for, right? Like, you can say it's a hospital and it's really like a command center or like an intel center or whatever, but it's also really easy to make it look like that from like from a distant point of view. And then really you're just setting up your adversary to strike an unlawful target. And then you're just like, oh, look, you struck the hospital that we took all of our stuff out of like 2 weeks ago. Like there's so much that goes into targeting. There's so much margin for error that like this sort of stuff, it happens. It was like a huge issue like in Iraq and Afghanistan too. It's been a problem with like the Yemen and the Saudis going after them. It's just so easy for some of these areas to like be something one day and then the next day they're not. I think that probably plays into a bit of it too. But I think you're right that they basically are willing to accept the risk and press forward with the intent of going after Hamas, dealing damage, as opposed to just being like, oh well, we're not sure, we're just not going to do anything.
Yeah, And it's kind of interesting how the attacks sent over from Palestine, over from the Middle East, have kind of been used as part of their incentive or their justification for invading Gaza at this point. Because you never really, I mean, there has been attacks from Gaza, but that hasn't been the majority of what's been dealing the damage to Israel for the most part, at least not on their borders anyway. And I think Gaza right now is just, from what I've read, it's in a full-on famine at this point. You could just control the transportation between Gaza and Israel at this point. You could just starve them out if you wanted to. You don't even really need to bomb them at this point. But they're going to anyway, more than likely. Maybe to send a message to their friends in the Middle East, but who knows, really?
A part of it is the hostages. I mean, it is about. I don't necessarily think their entire goal is just kill them all. I think they would like to see a change in relations. They've been
Yeah.
aggressive for a long time, and a lot of uh, this isn't the first time they've gone to war with a neighboring
No.
country or the state in general. So a lot of the times the war happens and they're winning pretty hard, or they've already won and then they're held back, and they're forced to give up what they've taken. They still hold on to land that they've taken, and they have no intention of giving that shit up. Um, so I mean, their aggressive nature
Yeah.
has this isn't anything new, and it just was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was a pretty big event for them, and they've just
Yeah.
been held back by other countries. Most of the U.S. telling them to chill the fuck out, please. So there
What?
was, yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, it's like they're our ally, but how are we going to look if they continue with this invasion and they don't think about the potential consequences it has for the people that are related to them, like people over in NATO, people over in America? Like, how is it going to make its allies look if they just sit by and let this happen too? Like, I think there has to be a cutoff point where we say, hey, this isn't cool. Like, at a certain point, you have to say this is violating uh, the Geneva Convention, and people need to step in and take control of the situation. I think if the United States is going to do something, it's better to do it now than never, because Gaza is, it's at its breaking point, or it's close to it. So I think we should be sending over forces over there to either move people out of Gaza or to commandeer it temporarily until things can get restabilized.
Well, there's rumor of a proposal of moving uh, Palestinian refugees from Palestine to here in the U.S. Um, I don't know how real it is or not, but it's a pretty strong rumor. There's a lot of people talking about it. I don't I don't know how good that sounds or not. I don't think it sounds good based on previous situations where um, countries have taken in refugees. We already kind of have
Mm.
a problem where illegal immigration is completely out of control. Europe's obviously having a lot of trouble with this. So I don't know. I'm not sure there is a win situation here from any perspective. The U.S. I mean, you bring up a good point about how does it look from for us, for Americans and for the U.S. But like we already know how it looks. It doesn't look good. There's a lot of people protesting across America, but also across the world for the U.S.
Yeah.
to take a more hardline stance and stop in general.
Yeah. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're still building that huge like aid port, right?
Yes.
So
Hmm.
that's going on. There's still like I think it's mostly there's a lot of NGOs too that are also like still like dropping aid from the air, right? Because that's like one of the
Hmm.
few ways to get aid in where you're like not going to get shot at.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Hopefully the sea corridor helps with that, but I don't know. That port project in general is also pretty ambitious. Like I know they did a briefing I think last week up at the Pentagon, and the reporters asked them like, oh, like are you anticipating that like these the I think it's the Navy. I think the Navy's the one that's like, oh, are you like worried that the sailors are gonna get shot at? And they're like, yeah, like that's very likely. Like they could get shot at by either the people living in Gaza or the other side on accident. Like you're in the way. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's pretty rough out there.
Yeah, I think as well, going back to the protest thing, it's being funded by the same people that funded all the other protests that have happened over like the past few years in America. And a part of me is like, cool, great, because it's like, one, it lets these people in America know who really owns them. It lets people know that there are things that you can't protest against because there have been other protests that have happened in America, whether it be on a college campus or in the inner cities. And there was never any police sent after them, and the police were told to actively ignore it. Whereas with this, it's like they're getting Chapter 8 thrown at them, they're getting tear gas thrown at them, they're getting their encampments destroyed. So it's kind of eye opening to see a lot of these people that lean on either the left or the right to really see that hey, there are certain things you're not allowed to protest. Maybe you should start asking more questions about that instead of focusing on the other end of the political spectrum. And it's like, well, maybe at some point, these guys eventually they're going to have to stop. They're going to have to stop at some point. These protests will eventually die down, obviously, but um, I think it's very interesting to watch and see how it all unfolds.
I don't know. I mean, I thought the same thing until today when the bombings had started. I mean, I just kind of stopped thinking about the invasion, and I mean, Israel's been pretty clear about their plans and it going through. The
Yeah.
protests were kind of wrapping up. I mean, most of the encampments have been cleared. Um, I do love Florida's response. They were so fast on it. They started tear gassing like 8 people who were in
Yeah.
a circle, versus New York, where they were just kind of letting um, Palestine protesters and Jewish protesters battle it out for fun. They were just watching. Very
Yeah.
different stances. Um, so I don't know. It's kind of weird that some of the protests are allowed and aren't allowed, and it also depends on which state you're in, um, and who's
And where you're
administering.
holding them at.
Yeah, yeah. I think I don't know. It's kind of unique to America, I'd say, just because of the disconnect between federal and state governments. But yeah, you're right. There's a common funding factor. There's definitely some big people who are funding it for whatever
Well,
reason.
I think it's unconstitutional to shut down these protests. I do.
Oh,
I
really?
think, yeah, you have the right to assembly. You have the right to free speech. Obviously, that doesn't give you the right to harm anyone or to harass people in a threatening manner. But they do have the right to assembly, and they do have the right to free speech. And school campuses are typically public property. Like everyone is able to go onto a university campus. If you look at old footage of the Vietnam War era, for the Vietnam protests, there was huge amounts of people in those crowds that were protesting, and there was less force being directed at people for the Vietnam protests than there is being directed at these actually smaller groups at more public universities that are having essentially the book thrown at them, which is I think is kind of ridiculous. I think if you ignore
Curiosity,
them, the problem goes away for the most part.
yeah, out of curiosity, where do you think the protests, I guess, have been hampered down the most? Like, I'm kind of thinking like UCLA got a lot of attention, right?
Yep,
And
Yeah.
to some
Columbia.
extent USC. Columbia, yeah, that was another one. So Columbia was like a private university. So like that one's um I don't know. I was a little surprised. Like when I think of, like California, I think, very, very liberal, very left leaning. So I was kind of surprised that the protests there were dealt with kind of as they were. Cause that was, I mean, granted, I think there were, accusations of some funny business going on in there. So like that may have had something to do with the response. But I don't know. I didn't hear a lot about, because I know UT was in the news for like a little bit, but then died down. Um, what else? Georgia was in there for a little bit. UNC Chapel Hill. Like if you've seen like the pictures or video of like the fraternity like trying to protect the American
Oh
flag
yeah.
from people throwing stuff at it, like the
Yeah.
balls of water or whatever. Um, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of like where it got rough was sort of maybe like some of the left leaning states, and I'm kind of curious what you both maybe think the reason is for that, or if there is any, or if it's just totally random.
Well, let people on the left typically they want like a safer community. Like they want to talk about they want the moral high ground. They want to at least appear like they are on the moral high ground. But then when it actually gets time to go to the moral high ground, they don't want to do it because it attacks their pride, or they feel that it hurts their pride, or it inhibits them. And once they feel that things start inhibiting them, then they get the law involved. So that's typically how people on the left are, at least what I've noticed. So you have this huge protest that occurs. All these people are talking about, the humanitarian response over in Palestine and Gaza, and how it needs to be dealt with, and they need to be free people or free citizens. And you'll notice how the law shuts them down really quick. You got the riot squads coming in. You got tear gas coming in, and I guarantee you that was called in for sure by people that were more than likely on the left. Those police were absolutely pressured by people that were more than likely on the left, because at the end of the day, you're interrupting their peace, and it doesn't matter if there's a part of the world where it is unpeaceful or it is violent, and there are people that are suffering that need help. It's all about image. It's about appearing like you want the moral high ground, and then once something like a protest to help these people comes up, they shut it down really quick because it gets in the way of their peace and quiet.
I think
Yeah, I remember. Sorry, no, go ahead, Dougie.
I was just gonna say I think there are two reasons. One, if the U.S. knew that, well, actually, the easiest answer is people. It was no longer peaceful. People got hurt. Is the easy answer. There was a Jewish girl who got knocked unconscious, and it was on video and it went viral and everyone saw it. I mean, you can't call your protest peaceful and see that. And a lot of what I think we've seen this administration do is kind of wait for that moment of, okay, it's happened, let's react. Um, but
Yeah.
they could have also just known that today was happening, where this was only going to get worse. And I imagine that as the situation for Palestine gets even worse, there's going to be more protests. These protests aren't staying peaceful already, even before today. Um, so I'm sure that expectation probably played a large amount in clearing things out ahead of time before we get to a degree where it gets worse, it gets wild. People start setting things on fire, or you know.
No, I can agree with that for sure. I definitely think some of these protests that they have gotten violent, and they do need to be dealt with. I do think that they should put more of a focus on dealing with the individual. I don't think you should throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think it's not difficult to track down these people since most of it's being recorded. I think the police are capable of targeting the individuals that are responsible. That they don't need to resort to targeting the group as a whole. That's my perspective on it, at least. Um,
But if it's not like one person. It was more than one person. They're in a group. I mean, you could see who did it, but let's say we couldn't. They were wearing masks, or let's say you could, and they're in the middle of the
and
encampment. Either way, you have to get a bunch of police to go in. And I mean, we saw what happened when police went in groups. They got surrounded. They had to step back because they didn't want to hurt anybody, and it's a push and pull type thing. So like either way, your options are go in and use force to stop violence, or let violence happen while you wait for you to get that opportunity. You don't send in special forces to drop in from a helicopter and take out the 5 individuals.
no,
So
no, that's true. That's true.
you know
And a part of these protests are being funded. Like people don't just like gather like this for free nowadays, or at least some people don't.
someone's making money
The
for sure. Someone's
Yeah,
always making money.
yeah, because at the end of the day, these are still students. They still need to pay off their loans, and if they are able to do that by participating in a protest where people are getting funded for it or paid for it, then they're gonna do that, and you really can't blame them, to be honest, with how high student loans are nowadays, how costly it can all be. So I think that's eventually the protests will die down though, and once they do, the focus over in Gaza, over in Palestine as well, is gonna lessen over time, and people are gonna forget about it. Um, and ultimately, it would have been best for Israel to wait for protests to die down before participating in an invasion or initiating it, just because they're going to have to do twice as much damage control as they did before because of all the focus on it from the media. Just my personal opinion, though.
You kind of bring up an interesting point that eventually it seems like almost every issue has a point where like you numb the public to it and they stop caring, or you get to a point where the protesters are so exasperated that they like basically slow down and stop protesting.
Exactly.
It could
And
just be like if we're thinking about it from Israel's perspective, it could just be that they don't care about how the media portrays them. They may feel like, all right, most of the world hates us anyway, or we just don't care what the media says because it doesn't matter as long as governments have our back. We'll go ahead and keep doing what we're doing. And the people that are shelling out money to us, giving us weapons, securing our existence, they're going to keep doing that because they need us, or they have invested too much that you've sunk cost fallacy them into thinking that they're going to support you forever, or whatever.
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, it's not the American public that really decides policy; it's our elected representatives, and our elected representatives just voted to send them a couple $1 billion worth of aid, which is primarily Iron Dome stuff, I think. But
Mm-hmm.
um, you know,
well, yeah, you also have to remember that there's a lot of dual citizens in our government, and those people, along with some others, are getting a cut of that. Like all of them get a cut every single time we send over aid. And it's like you see these politicians that aren't supposed to be making millions of dollars a year, yet they live in homes that are millions of dollars. Like our politicians are getting a cut out of every single time that we send money over, or that we sign a bill, or there's payouts, or anytime there's a bailout of some sort. These politicians are getting a cut of all of that. Not just dual citizens that are in our government, but also regular politicians that have been there for a while. We need to start imposing term limits, but the second you start saying term limits is the second that the CIA and the NSA start getting involved. So I'll leave it at that.
I think that's one of the things that Trump ran on, like back in 2016, where I was like, oh, if he did that, that would be amazing. And then he just never did it. And I was like, fuck.
Getting that to
Yeah,
pass, I
Trump.
think, it'd be pretty hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Trump's not that bright. He's not that smart. If he was, he would have done it within the 4 years that he had, but he didn't. So he
Four
was
years
too
fly by,
focused.
man.
Yeah, they fly by when you're not building the wall. Still no wall. Where's that wall, buddy? Oh,
Don't worry,
can't make
next
it.
time, guys. Next time he's got it, okay? 4 more years, he's got it.
Yeah, I already know what his next campaign slogan is going to be. Like, we need to build a wall and have Canada pay for it, and that's going to be the end of it. Okay, folks. I'm tired of hearing them say sorry. I don't need to hear apologies. You're getting the wall, and you're gonna love it. You're gonna,
You
and I
don't
love it, and the people love it.
don't want to don't want to go
This
hang out with
African
Castro's
American woman
bastard
next to
son.
me, she loves the wall too. All my African Americans, they all love the wall.
Oh my.
Yeah, who doesn't love good old Trump, right?
So I have a friend who actually is very libertarian. He believes that we should uncap the amount of profit our uh, congressmen can get paid, and that their pay should be based on their state. The state they're representing.
Well, the
If
thing is, there is no amount of money that can satiate people in power, because the reason that they're in power to begin with is because they had a desire for more. Like that's the reason why they're there to begin with. Like it's not going to stop at $1 million, $2 million. There's no stopping point. Even if you uncap it, or you do this, you do that, they're still going to want more. Like there is no end. That's part of the reason why they were able to get to where they are to begin with, is because they had a drive for that. And the only way to really put a stop to it is to impose term limits. It's much more difficult to exacerbate or to siphon funds out of various bills or payouts that we give to other countries. If your term limits are less, less time, like 8 years, and The payouts that you're giving have a limit set on them by upper levels of government that you really just aren't able to control as a senator or a governor or at the House of Representatives even. It has to be done at the cabinet level. And the people in the cabinet have to be audited every single year pretty much. Because if you don't audit literally every politician, they're just going to do whatever they want. So start talking about audits, start talking about term limits, because that's what's really going to make a big change.
Fair. I do feel like I don't I I'm not sure if this would be correct or not, but I feel like the shorter term limits might give more power to the institutions that are permanent, the very good ones, you know.
Which ones?
Like the FBI.
They already have power. The only
hmm
position that you can really adjust from those is the director's position. Like you could put a term limit on the director's position, but he's still going to have connections. He's still going to have the phone numbers. He's still going to have emails in his pocket. He's still going to know the people that he needs to know to get things done. It's not going to change a whole lot, even if you take away the term limits, because those people have access to confidential information. The most you could really do with someone at that level is have internal investigations take care of it. That's all you could really do. And at the end of the day, if the internal investigations is in fear for their life, they're not going to say anything. They're not going to do anything. They'll take one look, be like, yep, we investigated ourselves and found nothing wrong. Please continue. That's going to be the end of it.
That's kind of the paradox of like internal investigative services, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the paradoxes. The other paradox is like you want an investigative service that is strong enough to punish people it needs to punish, but not strong enough that it just runs the fuck over everybody else, and then just like, we go like, what was it, McCarthyism or whatever? We're just like rounding
Yeah.
up, communists and throwing them in jail or doing something
Not
like
even
that. Like, oh, you don't
communist.
believe what I believe? Get the fuck
Yeah.
in there.
It was
Go to jail.
suspected communists. It wasn't even like actual communists. It was suspected communists. That's the
Oh
funniest part
yeah.
about it.
I do think it's so funny how how anti-commie America was 50 years ago, 60 years ago, or even just 30, 40 years ago. And now there's like an actual movement to bring very uh bring socialism here. Like
Hey,
it's
can I
See,
sidebar
capitalism
something really quick?
works.
sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, it's a little off topic, but it's a little bit related to the protests and stuff we talked about before and like the communist movement.
hmm
So at my school, I went to American University, which is like one of the most liberal college campuses in America. It was like top 5 for being liberal. And so there were always like protests and groups and things of that nature. So one of the groups that became really popular when I was a freshman, they were like the communist group on campus. And you would know who they were because they'd wear these little, like they'd pin little patches of red to whatever they were wearing. And they were everywhere when I was a freshman up until the end of the first semester because for some reason they got this great idea that in order to raise awareness for their cause, they were going to go out at like 2 or 3 a.m. on like finals night during dead week and start banging on pots and pans and waking everyone up and screaming and yelling into megaphones and like just being the most annoying like people that they could be. And let's just say that group did not last very much longer because everyone else was so fucking pissed. Even people that were like, "Oh yeah, you guys like go ahead and exist," and "Oh, that's so cool. Like that group is gonna do good things." And then like the next week they're like, "Nope, fuck that group. That group fucked over my sleep schedule and fucked over my final studying. Nah, fuck that group. They're done."
Yeah.
No, I think
Yeah.
that's a
100%.
kind of a phenomena where in the U.S. like people don't really care until it starts impeding on their lives. Even like the smallest inconvenience, and they're just like, wait a second, this movement we were totally okay with existing needs to go die. Like, go away, man! How dare you interrupt my sleep? Stop it. No,
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
was thinking of the same thing where at the protests where it was fine, like on campus it was fine until they really started being really inconvenient. And I feel like the majority is really silent on these topics because it doesn't affect them, until the pots and pans are being banged outside their door at 2 a.m. and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, that's enough. We're done with that. Sorry, it was fun.
Not the
Yeah. Like
pots and pans, dude.
like everyone's a lemming, and like everyone is a lemming. Everyone. Like if I got an email that said like it gave me a cease and desist about hey, don't talk about this or else they're like, sure, I'll stop. I like life. I prefer it. You don't have to. You don't even have to threaten me. Really, just send me an email saying, "Hey, can you stop?" And I'll say, "Sure." As long as it's from a government agency, I really don't mind. I will stop talking about it if you send me an email. If you need my email, it's in the comments.
Um, what did you guys think, or what do you think about uh, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France,
Oh.
saying that he would send troops to
I
Ukraine?
don't fucking believe him. I don't believe him.
Yeah, it's like Napoleon's special education brother saying that. It's what do you have? Like how do you compare to Napoleon? Well, we got some troops. Like, have they brought out the guillotine yet? Because you don't sound too confident right now. You know what happens to French inquisitors that aren't too confident? They get the guillotine, and that's kind of what's happening to Macron right now. He doesn't really have much of a country left, and he's just trying to seem relevant.
Yeah, it's hard to tell with him. Really, it is just because he likes to say things to get people riled up for attention.
Yeah,
But I do think there is an increasing rhetoric from EU countries where they are uh, willing to send more advanced aid, or at least verbally they're getting a little vocal about red line situations. They feel like they're gonna have to get involved. Um, I think the UK recently came out and said they were okay with Ukraine uh, attacking within Russia. And then
With their missiles, yep.
yeah, and then Macron, who again, at the start of the war, he was very shaky on the whole thing. He was like, "I'm gonna talk to Putin. It'll be fine." Blah blah blah. Like we're all
Putin
still friends.
whisperer.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Good
and
job, buddy.
yeah, and now
Yeah,
he's
okay. That
good.
guy's. I have a lot of opinions on this, but man, dude, like we knew we had a very good educated guess ahead of time that like Putin was going to and Russia was going to invade Ukraine. And we knew about it like well in advance. Like remember like they were talking about it in the media and like with very high level government conversations like in like what late November, December, and we were always like, "Oh, like they're going to go in like January. Like we know they're gonna go in January, and then like what would Russia do just to like be dicks? They'd like push it back a week, and then they'd organize like false flag shit, and then we'd be like, hey, look, you guys are organizing false flag shit to try to like justify an invasion. Stop it. And then they push it back another week, and they try the same shit, and then eventually Russia just goes, well. We're done waiting for the perfect opportunity. We're just going to go in because it's Ukraine. We don't need to try this hard. And then they ran into a bunch of issues. But during that entire process, France was one of the countries that was like, nah, Russia's not going to do it. And we're just like, bruh, like, look at what we have. We know that this, like, we have such a good guess that this is what they're trying to do. And nah, Putin wouldn't do that. I'm like good friends with the guy. Like, okay, dude. All right. Yes, very good job. You did a really good job. And now you're saying you want to send troops when you're not going to do that. You are. It just seems like they're kind of floundering because, like, within Europe, there's always like a jockeying for who's supposed to be like top dog, right? And France has this huge ego, whether it's earned or not. I'll let you all debate. But like, that's why there's two official languages for NATO, right? There's English and there's French, and they
yeah,
do it because they weren't going to join unless they could speak French, and like, oh, like we're like top dogs and like we should do this. Like a part of like what they're saying is just them trying to drum up support with a bunch of countries who usually don't get a lot of support from a NATO, right? Like the Baltics, Poland, and a few other of the European countries that are a little more willing to take an aggressive stance with Russia. That's just that just seems what it is. I don't think they're actually going to send troops there. Like maybe they'll send more aid, maybe they'll shell out more money, but I'd be very surprised if I wake up one day and then France is like, "We're sending troops in, boys." Like no, no, you're
yeah.
not.
They'll be sending 2 guys, and they'll be sending like a roasted pig, and that'll be their supply for the week, and then they'll send them back because they need to protect their French lives. Like the meme where SpongeBob's sitting there at the grill and he hears a ding and he just puts his hands up and says, "I surrender." That's France. That's France. At literally every opportunity. Yeah, if
Uh,
there's an issue that comes up, France is there to surrender. They'll be the first one to do it. The fastest surrender in the West.
yeah, I kind of agree that I think
Yeah.
French is a bit of a meme.
Yeah.
And they're probably just being loud for no reason. But I wonder if that isn't a train that is headed in that direction, because they aren't the only ones who've come out and said that um, if Ukraine falls, then we're gonna have a problem. Like, it'll be a problem.
Well, they should have thought about that before they like fucking
Sucked on
did
Russia's
nothing
titty.
at the start of this. Well, yeah, that's what we like. It also kind of sucks too, because, and again, I'm gonna fiat this or caveat this with like, oh, I could be wrong, but if I'm recalling correctly, right, we basically try to like tell Ukraine like, hey, you need to get your shit together because like Russia's about to come in and like do stuff, and even then they were like, oh no, no, like, we have the what is it, like the Minsk Accords or whatever, like we're working it out, like it's fine, they're not gonna do anything. And then they want to do it again. And same thing, like you had France and Italy and like a couple other countries that were just like,
Germany is a big one.
well, we're not. Yeah, Germany was another one. And now, I mean, Germany after the invasion was like, oh shit, we need to get our shit together. And then they put like $1 billion into their defense industry, which, hey, good for you guys. But like, a little too little too late sometimes. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
if you wanted to deter Russia, you needed to do it well in advance. And I think it was telegraphed enough that there was ample time to make more preparations. And now they're just kind of, you know, suffering from lack of foresight or lack of willingness to be proactive and not reactive. And I get it. Like you can't jump at every boogeyman in the closet, or whatever, but like this one I felt like was kind of egregious personally.
No, by the time Russia takes over Ukraine, France won't even exist as a country anymore, to be honest. There's so many Muslims and Africans in that country that it's not even gonna like the French language would just be a dead language at that point. It'll be like Latin, kinda. Like the French people just won't even. They'll be like they'll be pretty much gone or close to it at least. It's kind of similar for a lot of the other EU countries, excluding Poland and Hungary, I think, and I think maybe Croatia and Romania. Could be wrong,
What do you
but
guys think in general about the increase in uh, Muslim culture and Muslim leadership in the Western Hemisphere? I know this seems like a baity question.
let's go over the Like, I'm not against it to start out, right? Because to be honest, I will pretend to be against it until the day it comes forward. Because to be honest, it looks pretty damn sweet. You got to pray, you got to do fasting every now and then, right? But you can have as many wives as you want. Like, you get 72 virgins when you die. Like, I don't know. It seems like a pretty good deal to me. I wouldn't mind it, but the second that
Although
starts happening is the second the women's rights start going away, and then you start to hear complaints,
Is
and
it
it's
a
like,
problem for
listen,
you?
guys, I'm just going with the majority here. I didn't vote to take away your rights. I'm just going with what the current power is. I'm a lemming. Don't blame me, but you're gonna have to go into the kitchen again. I'm sorry.
It's not my fault. It's your
It's
fault.
it's your fault for not being more outspoken about it earlier. I didn't want this to happen. My hands are tied though. I have 3 extra wives now. I'm not gonna complain.
I do feel like this is kind of a walking train wreck. Not because I think, just beside my personal opinion on the culture and aspects of the culture, um, but they do clash. They clash with Western culture in a lot of aspects. They do, obviously. I don't think that's a fact.
Yeah.
Um, but we are seeing kind of a rise of it, and I don't think we've seen too much of a reaction yet. I know in the UK their local elections have wrapped up, and um, there's a lot of Muslim leaders who've been elected. France, like you said earlier, is another one. And in
Yeah.
general, Europe is, kind of just seeing a rise of Muslim culture in their countries.
Well, yeah,
Um,
no, it's not realistic. It's just not even gonna be a country anymore. Like it's just gonna adopt, the culture of Muslim or African cultures, and then those people that were there before are just not gonna be there anymore. That's just how it is. That's just the future. And I don't really care too much about it. I'm a lemming as long as my life is not interfered with in any way. I don't really care. But for them, it might suck. Like, but that's up to them. Like, are you gonna start deporting people? Probably not,
if Trump wins.
because No. No, Trump couldn't deport a single Mexican by himself, even if he was given like a head start. Like I bet you if the Mexican if the Mexican was bound up by himself, tied at the hands and wrists, and he was hopping away, Trump would fall on his face and not be able to throw him over the wall. I'm sorry, but his plans have failed horrendously.
Oh jeez. Um. I was talking to somebody, and we were watching a streamer. I think it was a streamer. Um. And I was kind of just out of that sphere. I didn't really understand what the hell was going on, but he was just saying how a lot of streamers and influencers have kind of like adopted the culture just to fit in and get
Yeah.
views. So I don't know. This is a very interesting kind of dilemma. I think we might see kind of rise up in the future. It's hard to tell if these protests are like kind of an early warning sign of the just the clashing of the two cultures. I don't know, but I was just curious what you guys had thought, because I had seen so many reports of it, and I saw some people
Well,
kind of.
I'm in like Ohio, I think it was, or I think it was Ohio, or it was somewhere up north, the state up north. There was like a local election,
Mhm.
and in this country, obviously, and no one there spoke in English. Like the entire thing, the entire ceremony was done in like Arabic or something.
Mm.
And some people, and it was on the news about it. So it's like, and honestly, English is a better language in my opinion. Like it's just easier. It's like you go to any other country, they always have like an English class in their junior to high school or whatever, and it's just a better language. It's more efficient. Obviously, if you want to stick to your culture and learn your own language, that's up to you. But as a general rule, and I've have friends that are Hispanic and they've been here from Mexico, and I asked them, like, I told them, I was like, hey, maybe I should learn Spanish. And they're like, no, English is better. People should just learn English. And they're pretty much right.
You're racist.
Oh, well. Oh, well. I'll live.
True.
I'll live.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Uh,
It'll be fine.
so you guys both think that the protests will die down, and that the invasion won't hit. It won't be as big in the news because people are a little desensitized to it.
I don't think people really care too much about it, to be honest. I mean, like, even I think the only people that it really negatively affects here is the students. Like it only affects the students that are trying to go to class and they have their classes shut down that they paid for because of all these protests. That's the only people that it negatively affects. Everyone else doesn't really care. And I think that's the correct response. You really shouldn't care. It doesn't affect you, so you should not care. That is how it has always been, and that's how it always will be.
I disagree. I think people should care. I have this conversation a lot where, it'll be like me, and I'll sit in a group of three, and I'll be talking with one of them about politics or, current events, and the other person will always say, I don't pay attention, it doesn't affect me. But like, it definitely does affect you, right? Like, it if you had paid attention to things ahead of time as a college student, you probably could have seen some of these protests ahead of time and maybe even planned ahead. Or, I mean, these things are important when you're electing leaders. It's important to
Yeah.
pay attention to what it is they're saying, um, how they're going to react, or what their actions are going to be. It just kind of so happens that I would say Trump and Biden's foreign policies are slightly similar on this particular issue, but maybe not the Ukraine one. I think he'd still lose out on it just because most people are in agreement that aid is needed, and the US has to play a role. But in general, you should still pay attention. And like you said, freedom of speech and the right to protest matters too.
It does.
Um, So I don't know. I just hear that a lot where it's like, it doesn't affect me. It's like, well, it will affect you. Like,
Yeah.
there's a war in the Middle East that usually affects you in some way. Your gas prices usually end up going up or down based on what's happening in the Middle East. It'll affect you. You
I would
know.
love to see gas prices hit $6. That would be the
Oh
most fun
God.
to watch. If gas prices hit $6, everyone tomorrow morning is going straight to the dealership and trading in their truck or their car for an EV. You already know. Like at that point, you may as well just suck it up, make the down payment, trade in the car, get the EV. You already know that's going to happen, and it will be the funniest thing to watch. Because I'm probably going to be doing the same thing.
I think it's odd though, because like I feel like the conflict in the Middle East, or like the issue in the Middle East that has a bigger effect on gas prices or prices of things in general is actually what's going on in Yemen with the Houthis, like firing at ships still. Because it's getting to a point now where like that whole Red Sea area and was it the Bab al Mandeb, I think it's called, that little
Yeah.
very, very thin strip, that thin strip line of communication where there's a ton of shipping that goes through. A lot of companies now are like, well, this is too dangerous and we had to go around now. So now we're just gonna have to go around the southern horn of Africa, which adds, I don't know how long it adds to the journey, but it adds time, which it equates to it costing more money or being less efficient. And so that's going to affect consumers. That's
Yeah.
where the price is going to be eaten up at. And so I'm kind of surprised that one actually doesn't have more coverage. But I guess Gaza and Palestine and Israel have always been kind of the hot topic. It seems like it pops up every 5 to 10 years. It pops up again.
Yeah.
And would you like to go?
Oh.
just
oh,
just to
oh,
piggyback, that's not even the only thing that's happened. The one of the ships that I think got hit also cut an internet cable, which ended up driving up. Yeah, an internet cable. The sea network of cables.
Fiber optic, right?
Yeah. There's a network of them on the sea floor. And a major one got cut in that area because of what was going on there. The Houthis attacks. And internet traffic had to get rerouted. It does affect you. It affects you in almost every aspect of your life. You just don't see it flashing in front of your face. Like Ryan said, inflation, a part of that is being caused by these wars. A large part of it is being caused by these wars. Your internet could fucking turn off one day, but people would be pissed about that. But there was a decrease in bandwidth for everybody because you had to start rerouting traffic. It affects you. You just you won't know why until you pay attention to it.
I mean, if anything, the people that could use the dose of less internet is Americans. Those are the people on this planet that need less internet, not more of it. I think it would actually be a little bit of free therapy for a lot of these people, a lot of these chronically online Andes.
I think a lot of them would go out and start protesting. You see the largest protests in all of mankind.
Bring back the internet. All hail the internet.
Exactly.
Please bring back our internet overlords. And then the politicians are like, well, listen, we have internet, but you guys don't. That's just how it has to be right now.
Do you know something I saw happen? I was watching a streamer on Kick. If you don't know what Kick is, it's like, it's like Twitch 2.0. I was watching a streamer and he was streaming the protests and he had managed to get inside. Anyways, it's kind of besides the point. He was streaming the protests and he ended up getting shadow banned, like in the middle of it. Yeah, on Kick. And Kick is known to be like, slightly more.
No. Kick doesn't care at all. Kick literally doesn't give
he got shadow banned.
That's what's weird about it. That's so weird to me because it's like they've let people like do crazy ass things and not said a word, but they shadow banned the guy.
They shadow banned. He had 4,500 viewers, and he got shadow banned. If you don't know what shadow banning is, basically, you know how normally when there's a popular video or a stream going on, it's put in front of everyone's face. When you go on the For You page, it's like, check this out. Fucking half the world is watching it. You should watch it too. When you're shadow banned, that doesn't happen. It doesn't matter how popular you are. You won't show up. As a matter of fact, when you're shadow banned, someone has to go and look up your exact account to see your posts. Like, you're pretty much shut down entirely. But yeah, they shadow banned him. And if, they're shadow banning people on Kick for such an activity, damn well people are getting shadow banned for all sorts of fucking reasons across the social media board. Like, there's just no way.
No. Yeah, maybe Kick is anti-Muslim. Maybe that's their stance now. It's like, I can guarantee you one thing. If this was a Black Lives Matter protest, there wouldn't be any shadow banning going on whatsoever.
There would. It would be for the other side.
Yeah, it would be for the other side. Like, it would be anything that shows like bad confrontations or bad faith underneath the protest banner, that they would shadow ban. But
Mm,
if it's just someone that's just like inside the protest itself with a bunch of viewers getting shadow banned, that tells you that they don't want you to agree with them or to know what's going on or to see what people are concerned about,
mm,
which kind of paints it in a whole nother light. Like, so I guess maybe Kick is anti-Muslim then. Wow, that's interesting.
um, maybe. Who owns Kick? Isn't it Aiden Ross and somebody else?
Yeah, I think I mean, it makes sense though. I think Aiden Rosh is Jewish, isn't he? I'm pretty sure he is.
Uh, I don't know, but I think it does kind of just show that like shadow banning for these conflicts is very popular. You know, it's just gotta be like I
Yeah,
can't imagine how many people, videos, and pictures have been shadow banned, um, just to hide
just
whatever it
to
is they don't want you to
yeah,
see.
like what is it that's happening in these protests that they don't want us to see? Like, there's stuff that have happened in other protests that have been a lot crazier in comparison to some of these. Like, maybe it was one of the ones where someone got knocked out. Maybe they're trying to avoid a potential lawsuit, but from what it seems to me, it seems to be up to personal preference. And there's some people that are on the side of Israel and some people that are on the side of Palestine. So it seems to me like people are just picking and choosing whichever side they feel they best align with.
Mm, interesting. I don't know. I don't. Uh, I have no idea. I think it just sucks because it's just like if Kick's banning for that, Twitch is probably doing the same thing. There was a leaked document recently that showed that the government had pressured Meta, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter into
Mm.
kind of doing what it is they wanted them to do in terms of like showing content and shadow banning people. So it's a super popular control tactic, propaganda tactic.
Well, well, yeah, no, the government always supports the incumbent unless there's a mole. So the government's always going to do whatever it is possible to keep their incumbent in power because that's what they're hired to do. And so it makes sense. It's a smart strategy. It's what they should do. If they didn't do it, I would think they were stupid. I think you should always it's always going to happen. There's always going to be a government entity that will attempt to coerce via threats, via money, to get them to show the media whatever it is they want to see. And I think that's a smart play. That's a smart strategy, and they should continue to do it.
Interesting.
I
Speaking of
think if
moles, what
yeah
I would like to make sure it goes on record that a second Boeing whistleblower has been killed.
Yeah, I mean, stop talking about it. Literally, just stop talking about it. Like, do you want to die? Like, do you want to die? Are you suicidal? I think the guy said he wasn't suicidal, and then he started talking shit about Boeing. Like, apparently you are suicidal because you started talking shit about Boeing. So maybe maybe you shouldn't have done that and leave your kids without a father. Probably not a good idea, buddy. You should stick to the lemming strategy. Boeing good, government bad. Boo.
Please don't hurt
There,
me.
all hail Boeing. All hail Boeing.
I wonder, do you guys think this gives more or less merit to the UFO UAP bill that got signed last year? Um, and the fact that we haven't seen any whistleblowers come forth, or maybe they are and it's all in secret, but last year they put a bill in place to help whistleblowers come forth and talk to our Senate.
Those bills are a trap. Those bills are 100%.
They're
They're
trying to
literally
find the
saying
mole.
no. It's literally what they're trying to do. They're saying it's okay, whistleblowers, come forward. We'll take care of you. We'll put you in protection. And then when they come forward, they write their name down on a list and give it to a guy and they kill him.
Oh,
That's literally what happens. Yeah, they're
jeez.
literally a trap. If you think that whistleblowing is ever a good idea, stop. Stop. You're going to die. If you value your life at all, you will not say a shit. You will not say anything. If QA comes up, if you got to do a QA check, you give the thumbs up. That's what you do, buddy. You give the thumbs up. If you can't do the thumbs up, they'll replace you with someone who can, and then they'll kill you. So, do you want to live? Like, do you actually want to live? Do you think your whistleblowing meant anything? You're dead, and they aren't. You lost. Sorry.
And nobody cared.
Obvious, and
Nobody
nobody
blinked
cared.
twice.
Nobody blinked
Nobody
twice.
cares.
I do have respect for the newest whistleblower. I think his name's like Sam Salapore. He's like, if something happens to me, I emit peace or something. So I'm like, okay, at least he understands what the risk is. Whereas the other two just kind of went into it not thinking that something bad was going to happen to them.
That's fair.
I don't like stupidity. I don't. I'm sorry. If you go into that kind of situation and think you're going out alive, you're a fool.
But you don't care about finding out if there's aliens or not?
I think the government already has most of the information that people aren't going to have access to. They're never going to release anything that would be beneficial or useful. There's never going to be any conversation about what other whistleblowers have said in the past about it. There's not going to be any discussion on the use of magnetism or magnetic materials that have been used to generate motion or force and how those don't necessarily contradict the laws of physics on account of the materials being used. I can go into detail about it, but it doesn't really matter. Like, it's never going to be put into any power plant for at least several centuries because once again, people need to make money, and money is the method of control. And if there's no need for money to exist, then there's no need for them to control anything, which means they don't have their cushy lifestyle. So none of that information will ever be released in our lifetime. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Normally I agree, and I think the U.S. has kind of been sleeping on a lot of technology. However, I think in times like this, when there is direct competition country-wise, and we've already
Yeah.
kind of seen this happening, but the government does kind of have to like play a larger role in controlling society and not let corporations just do it. Where it's like, hey, we need this, we need to uh, outcompete our enemies. Like that's just what happens. So like normally
Yeah.
I would agree and be like, okay, probably this technology exists, but like, uh, you know, fuck for fuck's sake, like, the oil company says we don't care about EVs. We're gonna make sure we stop that shit from coming out and being popular. And
Yeah.
then you get into uh another Cold War scenario where you need to advance your society and technology, and you can no longer let those corporations play that kind of inhibiting role. So I think, I mean, we're already seeing that, right, with like AI and EVs becoming.
Well, I can tell you this: they already have devices, they already have the equipment, they already have the
Sure,
pilots that know how to use it, and they already have the aircraft.
but now we'll
They
get
don't.
access to it.
They no, no. Oh, and
We
now we get to
will. We will.
now we get to go on the ship too, right? Right?
Do you
Big
have
guy. No,
access to
little Timmy.
GPS? Do you have access to GPS? Yes or no?
Yes,
Okay, where do you
yes.
think that came from?
Came from satellites, which we were
And what do you
never.
think satellites were used for first? You think the government
Honestly,
was just like, we developed this great technology for all mankind. Here, it's free. Take it. It's great.
surveillance,
You'll love it.
surveillance. But this is we're not talking about surveillance. We're talking about high moving aircraft or fast moving aircraft that move at very high speeds very quickly. And that's a little bit different than this. They're not just gonna be like, okay, you guys can have access to this kind of technology without any implications, because they know damn well that people like Boeing would just stick their hands straight into it and use it to make as much money as possible. And once again, money is control. So it's like they're not gonna release these products. They're going to save them for when the time is right. If a war breaks out or if they are in dire need, and I mean dire, then they will break out the stuff that they have made and they will 100% unleash it. And then
The,
beyond that, it's just not going to be a reality for the average person.
the technology, it makes it into our hands. I'm not saying it makes it right away, but it does makes its way into our hands eventually.
Eventually,
Your
eventually.
phone is an example of that. Your fucking
Yes.
the jet liners are an example of that. GPS is an example of that. The internet
Yeah.
is a good example of that. Like there are plenty of really nice technologies. A lot of medical uh, breakthroughs actually, believe it or not, or they happen because of the military.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but
like,
we're not seeing anything in our lifetime.
no,
I
we
can
we
guarantee you
are.
that.
We will. We will.
I
I
disagree.
just told you your phone is a GPS. That's your lifetime.
My phone and GPS are not tools of war. They're tools of surveillance. Tools of war are not something that we're going to see.
There, you'd be surprised the crossover. How much tools of war um are used in everyday society.
Trust me, our government is able to keep as many secrets as they want from the people.
Yes, I'm
and
not
they are
saying they're not. I'm just saying the technology that they use gets old and then it's passed down to our hands. That's how it works. And now
Yeah,
that
I'm
we
talking.
have competition, there's a huge race to get the best technology, and part of that is making sure it gets into our hands because you need your populace to help create that shit.
I think it's
Who
comparable to a nuke. Like it's like we have like a new type of nuke that we've already developed that we've already worked on, and we're never going to use it unless we absolutely have to.
we use
And by the
nuclear
time
technology every day. What are you talking about? But I
no,
mean that's
I'm using this as an analogy, not as like a direct reference. So an example, like when we originally developed a nuclear bomb, it was a secretive process, and it was it
but
was
who'd they
done behind
use?
closed doors.
They didn't use just military people. They brought in
No,
civilian scientists.
they did
Yeah,
because they had to, and which is what I'm saying. So it's
that's
like
what
to the
I'm
point
saying.
until they actually have to start bringing in other
They
people
do
for
right
the.
now. That's what I'm saying. We're
I don't
there,
think they are. I don't think we're there. I do not.
bro. They
I
just
disagree.
released AI to every American on the like here. That is the most obvious fucking hey, help us develop
AI
technology I've ever seen,
AI was not developed by the government. AI was
bro.
developed. It
You're
wasn't.
I don't know what you're drinking, dude. I don't know. I don't know what. If you don't think AI was funded in some way by the government or used by the government before it was released, you're fucking crazy. You're
It wasn't.
crazy,
Wait,
It
dude.
wasn't. I'm telling
I
you, it
think
was.
I think at different stages of this show, both of you have needed to wear some tinfoil hats. Dougie, you right now, and Brayden, you at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. There's no way that AI wasn't fucking first developed for use by the military. Just saying. We can just tinfoil hat it and
I
move on.
think after it was developed, sure, I can make the argument for that about halfway through maybe, but I at the beginning, no, I disagree.
Fine. We can agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. Yeah. Otherwise, if we don't look like we're wearing tinfoil hats, then we wake up with a tube in our throat in China.
What the hell? I hope my government doesn't ship me out to China. Oh my god.
I wouldn't mind it. Worst case scenario, I go to a pachinko machine, and that's where I live out the rest of my days, making different various breaded oils in my little shop. I wouldn't mind it. It'd be peaceful. Playing Genshin Impact.
I can't remember. Did you guys answer the question of do you think protests will increase?
Oh, it's right. We wrote protests.
Do you think they'll increase or do you think it'll just be swept under the rug? No one will give a fuck anymore.
People
With the
already don't care. People already don't care, and they're just going to start caring less as time goes on, and then eventually it'll just be a nothing burger, just like the Vietnam protests. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we're here, we're trust fund babies here on our parents' dime. Let's complain about something because we feel we have the moral obligation to do so." And then like a few months into it, it just dies down. Then they go back to smoking weed, and then realizing that they should have just been smoking weed all along. Yeah, that's inevitably what will happen here. Eventually, all these protesters will get off this high, and then they'll start smoking weed to get the actual high, and then they won't care about it anymore.
What about you, Ryan?
I think at a certain point, so I think they'll decrease, and the reason I say that is just because we have election season coming up, and a lot of what America's going to be focused on is going to be election related, whether it's economic, immigration, that sort of thing.
Mm.
Let's be honest. Biden's gonna win. Let's be honest. Let's be
Maybe.
honest. Let's be honest. Biden's gonna win.
He's not gonna win.
If
He's
he
not gonna
doesn't win, I'm losing faith in my tyrannical government. I'm literally like, are you an evil government or not? I'm literally going to be like who did you guys put on the cabinet again? Like, do we need to bring out the flow charts here? Like, what's going on here, guys? How did you not manage to keep this dude in office? You literally are on the
win.
top of the hill. How did you lose the hill? How did you do it? Like, if they don't win, I'm going to be severely disappointed in my government.
Oh, Ryan, your mic is cutting out.
He's spitting fire. That's why.
It did look like you were dropping bars.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
I
right, well,
still
Doug, I'll
can't hear
pass it
you.
back to you. I'll pass
Oh
it back to
god.
you, Doug. What do you think? Do you think Biden's gonna
I
win?
no, I agree with you entirely. I'm hoping the dictatorship ends.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Listen, Biden's gonna win. Listen, worst case scenario, we go to monkey flu. It's monkey flu time, and then everyone has to do mail-in ballots again, and then yeah, he wins again by a large margin. Which I don't mind. I'm fine with that. Give me another $1,600, government. I don't mind. Give me $1,600. I get to stay inside all day, and then I get to mail in my ballot for Biden, and we can be done with it. I'm fine with it.
sadly, your mic is still not working.
What
Here,
do you think,
let's
Doug? You think?
hold on. Let's pause 1 second. So I didn't actually know that Hamas had accepted the ceasefire
Yeah,
proposal.
yeah. No, they accepted it. It's Israel that's like, listen, guys, we want to get rid of this problem. We don't have time for your ceasefire. Listen, this ain't kiddie preschool anymore. It's time for us to go to the big leagues.
Did they say why? Did they say why they weren't interested?
Probably because they just want to deal with them at this point. They're probably just annoyed
No
that they
more talking.
exist.
You know
Yeah, no more talking. Yeah,
We're done with
yeah.
it.
Listen, like the talking phase is over. We're moving on to the bombing stage again. Yeah, yeah. Like talking's done at this point. At this point, it's like a roach infestation that you can't ignore. At least to them anyway.
Not to you though. You would never call them
No,
roaches. That'd just be terrible.
no. Oh yeah, no. Of
Terrible.
course, I would never call. They're people. They're individuals.
Oh,
Except they're not lemmings, which is why they keep getting themselves put in this situation.
oh man.
They have a culture and they want to defend it, and so as a result, they suffer. Whereas if they were lemmings and they just integrated into Israel, they would probably be better off. But they don't want to be lemmings. They want to be freedom fighters, so they lose their lives as a result.
That's ridiculous. Why don't they
Well,
just bow?
that's
Why don't they
yeah.
just
Just
bow
be a
to
lemming.
Boeing like everybody else?
Yeah, yeah. Just be a lemming. You don't die, and you get to eat good food and enjoy your life. Wow, it's like you don't die or something if you're a lemming.
Oh lordy.
Lord can't help you now. You didn't choose the lemming. Even the Lord doesn't have mercy on non-lemmings. Even he's like, listen, buddy, you're too involved. I'm God, but I can't do everything for you, man. You gotta want to live.
What do you guys think about none of the Arab countries interested in taking in refugees?
I don't. I think that's a good idea. I think no country should take in refugees. I think taking in
No.
refugees is fucking stupid. I think if you take in refugees, you're essentially saying, please kill me, stab me in the back, take my money, and take my land.
Oh.
Please, please, more refugees, please. That's what refugees means.
Ryan, do you agree or what? Are you in that boat?
Well, to the original question, right, where you asked like, oh, are you surprised that other surrounding countries haven't taken refugees? I am a little bit, only because, well, on the one hand, like there is a shared culture and a shared religion between some of those groups. Others that are like, different sects of Islam and all that, like I'm not surprised that they aren't taking them in. But then there's also the matter of like, can these countries sustain more people that aren't going to have jobs, aren't from there? Can you process them in? Can you keep tabs on them? Can you administer over them? That sort of thing. And I'm not surprised the conclusion was no. And I'm also not surprised that those countries also were like, we're not even going to fucking bother trying. I'm not surprised. And I'm not surprised that like European countries don't want to like take in more of them. I'm not surprised that Russia and China aren't looking to take in more of them. I'm not surprised Iran isn't taking in more of them. And then, like Braden mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have our own immigration crisis. So I'm not surprised that the Biden administration isn't like, yeah, let's just, take the bikini bottom and push it somewhere else.
Yeah, I think we should accept them though. I think we should accept
Oh, I
them.
thought you said we shouldn't. Change your
Oh,
mind.
I didn't say we shouldn't. I just said there's a good reason not to. I
Oh,
didn't say
I
the
see.
United States shouldn't take them in. I think we should absolutely take them in. Because you know what that means? That means politicians have another excuse to, line their pockets. And then two, we can get closer to the Muslim way of life where I can have some more wives.
Oh, you're sad. I actually I like this interest you have, this like new motivation you have for joining the Muslim culture. I respect it, to
Yeah,
be honest.
I have a lot of respect for it. They don't mess around. They know what they want and they're here to take it. It's like it's better than what we have over here. Like what do we even have? Nothing. Like, what do we do, guys? What's the plan? And it's like,
We got Hollywood, baby.
yeah, we got Hollywood. We have wokeism. We have
Music City.
complaining. We have complaining. We have Karens, Republican Karens that sit out there with the Trump flags all day. Like, what's the plan in America? You go to China. There's obviously a plan. It's a dictatorship. You follow the lead of the government. That's better than no plan. Than what we got. I'd
We
rather
have
have
a plan too. You said
What's
it.
our plan?
Monkeypox, mail-in ballots.
Oh yeah. No, that's right. I
You
totally
are-
forgot.
You already said the plan.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The dictatorship continues. I forget. Okay, as long as we got the plan, then we're good. We don't
Yeah,
need the
we have
Muslims
a
just
plan.
yet. Once we
Yes.
lose track of the plan, then we can bring in the Muslims. Well, it's only if this administration, if Trump gets elected, we have to bring in as many Muslims as possible. Otherwise, everything's going to fall apart again. We don't have time for that.
You think Trump kind of saw this coming with the fucking ban on Muslim countries? Did you see that shit? I think he
I
saw
don't think
this.
Trump sees. I don't think Trump sees past the eyes in his own mirror. He wakes up, he's like, we're gonna do good today. We're gonna do good today. Make sure to put on my makeup. Gotta look good for the wall. Wall, honey, are you there? Well, he just goes to a fence that's laying in his bed underneath the covers, like, I knew you'd be built one day, waiting for me in my slumber.
Okay, fair enough. So, do you think somebody saw it coming?
Nope.
No.
Actually, that's a lie. The people at the top already knew this was coming. They knew it was coming years before anyone else did, and they still don't care about the result. They've already forgotten about it. They already know the end result. The end result is coming, and they don't care anymore.
That's fair.
So everyone just needs to move on and accept it, or keep being freedom fighters. Everyone be a freedom fighter and die for some reason, because that's noble, I think. Yeah, it's noble. It's noble. Die. Yeah.
I guess that's
What
only two
about
options.
you, Ryan? Do you want to die? Are you a noble person?
No, I do not want to die. There
Are
are
you
things
sure?
that I'm willing to die for.
That doesn't sound like you're too noble.
Is the
It
wall
sounds
one
to
of
me
them?
like, yeah. Are you willing to die for the wall? Are you willing to attach your body using chains to the wall to prevent the Muslims from shooting arrows at it and taking it down?
He's shaking his head.
All right, so the next topic, everybody, is the next topic is actually Helldivers 2.
Oh, that's right.
Well,
Yeah, we were gonna talk about Helldivers 2. Yes.
Speaking of
I forgot about
democracy.
Helldivers 2.
Super
Democracy
democracy,
fails
by the
even
way.
in video game form. How unlucky.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So go explain, please.
Yeah. Please, Ryan.
Well, the controversy obviously comes. It was like last week, I think, where they made an announcement that they were going to pull Helldivers 2 from Steam in a lot of countries because you basically need to link a PlayStation Network account in order to play Helldivers 2, which is basically going to take it away from players within, 120, 130 different countries. And then, of course, if you just didn't want a PlayStation Network account, then you would not be able to continue playing Helldivers 2, which was, it still is potentially in contention for Game of the Year. It's like an amazing co-op game, had a huge fan base, a lot of unique flavor with it. And they just it just rubbed a lot of players the wrong way because either one, you were going to just outright get your game access taken away and told tough shit, even though you paid for it, or two, they would force you to use PlayStation Network, which was under fire for basically having a lot of data breaches and so on. So some people worried that it wasn't secure, they're like, why do I have to do this? This seems stupid. But they announced yesterday that hey, we heard your feedback. We're going to not go through with this update, and we're going to reconsider other options. Pretty much is what they said. So on the one hand, yeah, they did listen to the feedback they got, but on the other hand, there may be a lot of people who feel their taste for the game has been permanently ruined. But I'd be curious to hear your all's thoughts.
Well, I've heard a lot about Helldivers 2. I have a lot of friends that play Helldivers 2. Me personally, I never wanted to purchase it or play it just because it wasn't the game for me. But according to what I've heard and what I've read, it was supposed to be part of the original agreement at the very start of publishing the game, but by that point, obviously the game had already been developed, the money had already been spent, and the company needed to make back what they had spent developing on it. And obviously, PlayStation, Sony or whatever, they have to make their money. They have to make their money too. And the way they do that is through your data, and siphoning money through the PlayStation microtransaction store. That's how they get their revenue, and they're not going to let a contract, you know, be excluded from that process. So it made sense. It was the smart choice for them to say, hey, you have to make a PlayStation Network account in order to play Helldivers 2. Obviously, the people that bought it in a country where PlayStation Network doesn't include no longer are able to play the game, and obviously that's a class action lawsuit waiting to happen. And PlayStation should have, obviously thought that through and said, hey, you should leave servers open for the countries that don't have PlayStation Network available to them. I think that would have been the more correct move to do. I think if that was the case, then they wouldn't be receiving all this backlash right now. And ultimately, the people that suffer are the players that purchased it in countries where it's not available, and the people that are being forced to make an account for PlayStation, pretty much against their own will. Otherwise, they lose the $40 that they spent on the game. It's a really rough situation for everyone to be in, and it's resulted in the game completely crumbling. And so PlayStation or Sony has shot themselves in the foot here with this forfeiture, and it's absolutely rough. What do you think, Doug?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't fucking care.
Well, here, since you
Now
don't know,
you
here
sound
I'll
like
say
me.
something else.
Sure.
I'll go ahead and say
Yeah,
something
you
else
go
about
ahead.
it too. I think one of the other core aspects of this particular issue, it's a microcosm of the debate that is, do you own virtual things that you purchase? Do
No.
you own virtual video games? And
Nope.
a lot of companies believe the answer is no, that basically like you are buying a license, and that as long as they provide the online service and you do all the other nuts and bolts, you can continue to play that game. Whereas like if you were to go out and buy like a copy of Super Mario Brothers, that's a physical version, you own that for you can do whatever you want with it. But that these online games now, a lot of companies are treating them as if like like, yeah, you purchased the game for the same copy or for the same price as like a physical medium, but it comes with a bunch of other bells and whistles and things that you have to do, and if you don't do them, you won't be able to play, or we'll just stop providing service one day, and then then it's all taken away.
Now we have talked
Yeah.
about this before on the podcast during the gaming episode we had, and I'm not surprised that the situation has come and happened. Like, I think it'll happen more often than not. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of products we buy these days, entertainment wise, is digital. And yeah, what happens when the company that is storing the game for you and running it for you and operating it for you falls, and
Yeah.
you're not getting it. You're not getting
No.
it back. Like, you just lost that shit. So
No. I purchased Dragon Age Inquisition for
mm,
Electronic Arts electronically, and then once they shut down that subsection of it, I no longer had access to the game. There's nothing I could do about it. Like, I don't own the game anymore because it's gone. Like, because the thing doesn't exist anymore. It's not there anymore. And the reality of it is that if you purchase something that's virtual, you're essentially saying, hey, one day this may not be available to me, and and you definitely don't own it. So it's like, should you buy a physical copy? Sure, whatever, do whatever you want. It's your money. But at the end of the day, just know that you're taking that risk, that it's not going to be available to you. And it goes for any game that you pay for online, that you download online.
I don't even
That
it's
isn't.
not even just
Yeah.
games. There was a controversy about an anime website that ended up going under, or and then it got bought out, and people who had purchased anime, whole shows on the website, they'd lost access. They'd no, we're talking like thousands of dollars just
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
It's all these shows is just gone. You wake up the next morning and all your shit that you like had bought is just gone. You don't have it
Yeah.
anymore.
It probably turned into a DMCA clown fiesta, and they just ended up getting shut down. And those people that bought all of those, shows and movies and whatnot, they don't have access to it anymore. It's gone, and that's just how it is online. So the thing is, when you buy something online, just know you don't own it. You don't even own the skins in League of Legends. They're just licenses to use the skins. It's in the terms of service, the terms of use. You don't even own the skins that you pay for in your games. So
Yeah.
and those skins could eventually just be gone anyway. They could just make a League of Legends 2 with all new stuff, and all your skins are just useless.
Yeah, you're not
So
wrong.
that's just how it is.
I suspect, thinking like way into the future as
Yeah,
VR
yeah.
becomes more popular, that digital ownership will increase. Of products and features digitally
NFTs.
there. NFTs, yep, NFTs. Um, and we'll see more situations like this. I think where
I'm sitting on some NFTs right now, believe it or not. I've minted my
I
own
We
do
all
believe
are.
that, Braden. I do. Are we? Are we all sitting on NFTs, or maybe it's just you two?
I'm sitting on NFTs.
You
I have
probably
NFTs. I have some rare ones too. I have like one of the Tezos NFTs that they released, like one of the first like 100 NFTs minted on the blockchain for Tezos. And they gave them out for free to people that made a blockchain account on Tezos. I have number 59. That's my taco. It's a taco. It's a little tiny little smiling taco. Listen, I know it sounds stupid when you okay, it is stupid, but listen, I'm saying
Hey, those are your words, not mine, buddy.
it is stupid.
Those are
It is
your words,
stupid.
not
I'm
mine.
sorry. The percentage chances of it being worth anything in the future is like zero, like close to zero. But hey, I'm still sitting on it, right? It's still a chance it's worth something, you know. I mean, think about when it started out originally. People were spending thousands of dollars on NFTs. You know, it could go up again. You never know.
I think the question is if there will be a buyer in the future. I'm sure there will be some freaking maniac who's like, I gotta own all the OG NFTs. What did you say, Teslas or some shit? Teslas,
Tezos. It's one of the.
Tezos.
They actually have advertisements in Formula One racing. So if you've seen like a Formula One race like the past few years, you probably would have seen the Tezos advertisements.
No,
Believe it or not.
it all seems Ponzi scheme-ish to
It is
me.
a Ponzi scheme.
Oh,
It's a Ponzi
okay.
scheme. It is 100% a Ponzi scheme. But the NFTs, they technically you technically can own them. You can
Yeah,
technically own them. But even though it's just an image, it's a receipt of an image.
yeah.
But it doesn't actually have any value. The value of it is entirely subjective,
Hmm.
just like the value of any currency on this planet. It's entirely subjective.
Yes, but I just don't suspect any government's gonna start using NFTs as a form of currency anytime
Well, in the
soon.
next 5 years, the United States government will be releasing something called the CBDC, which
Mm.
means Central uh, Digital Bank Currency, and essentially, it's just going to be the U.S. dollar put into crypto form, and that's going to be considered a security by the government.
For
That's
sure.
just pretty much yep. And so it's going to be a faster way of sending money. I'm sure you'll be given the option at some point to have your bank convert your current U.S. dollars into
Hmm.
the crypto version of it, and
Sure.
yada yada. And that's it. It'll be safer, quote unquote, because you can't hack into it unless you have the passphrase to the wallet that
Well,
owns the.
there
Yeah,
are a lot of benefits. There are a lot of benefits and there are a lot of downfalls to this.
yeah,
Um, Obviously, some of the benefits are you can actually you can more easily control inflation. We wouldn't have the problem that we have now in the terms of the COVID stimulus check inflation. We wouldn't
yeah.
have that problem if this was a thing. And I think a lot of the systems we're putting in place now are kind of in preparation for this. Um, I think the government and obviously even the companies that are making AI and pushing it, they're very aware of what's going to happen in the future when it comes to these bots, and how many people will be unemployed. I mean, even now, California is such a great example where the minimum wage requirements went up, and instead of paying that minimum wage, McDonald's has already started replacing workers with self checkouts and some AI systems. The same with Wendy's. It's very much happening a lot in the West, where AI is kind of replacing these jobs that it already can replace. Um, and so people would be unemployed, and you need a UBI system. You can't do UBI is basically like stimulus, just for ease, but you can't just hand out stimulus all the time without it causing inflation. So one of the ways you do it is you have a digital currency, and you give that to the people, and you can kind of set it to like expire. You don't have to. You can just make sure the value of the currency is controlled. by the government. You just set it, right? You just set the value.
Well, that's why Bitcoin is so valuable, because you
Sure.
can't print more of it.
Yeah.
There's a finite amount, and that's how it's needed to be in our actual government with our actual currency for the past 100 years. And ever since the inception of the Federal Reserve, they've just been printing money. And the thing is, you can't print money and not have it create inflation. So they just print money and they give it to all their buddies, and they say, "Hey, this is great." And then all that money gets trickled down, and eventually it just causes everything to be worthless, which is
Well,
unfortunate.
that was also the big deal with like not pinning it to gold, right? Because gold's finite, and that kind of helps value your currency in a certain way. But if you take it away from that, it kind of fucks with its value and lets you manipulate it in different ways, for better or
Yeah.
for worse.
But gold is too
But as we all,
finite. It's too finite. We don't have enough.
Yeah,
hey,
gold is.
let's
I'd rather own crypto than gold, to be honest.
Same.
Yeah, I'd much rather own crypto than gold.
I'm not an economist. All I know is that debt only matters if people come calling, if your debtors come calling.
Yeah, I think if your debt is like under like 10,000 or 30,000 or something like that, it just gets erased after 7 years anyway.
Well, that's not how it
Or it gets
works.
taken up by collections. It gets taken up by
Yeah.
collections, and like usually companies that like, let's say you are $10,000 in debt and they know you're not going to pay that debt. What they'll do is they'll sell your debt to another company or person for like, let's say it's like, hey, I'll say this person's $10,000 in debt for like $100. So you're getting that $100, and then you owe that other person $10,000, and then they will try to make your life hell to like get you to pay them. Or they can
Yeah.
buy it up and forgive it. Didn't Stephen Colbert do that one time where he bought up like $1 million in like debt for people for like he bought it for like $1,000 and then just forgave it all? I think he did that one time as like a stunt on his show. But
Really?
yeah, it was supposed to be like the biggest television giveaway ever. Where he basically here. Let me find up the number real quick.
Wait, couldn't I just
That's what I was
like
just
for
thinking,
example?
right? Hold on,
Yeah,
wait.
like
Is there a hack?
wait, why
Can we
couldn't I
just hack
why
it?
couldn't I just go into debt, buy my own debt, and then just forgive it?
Let me see. Giveaway.
Think about how
I'm
much
not
money
finding it
gets spent
super
on it
easy.
though. How much money gets
Oh yeah,
spent on
so
a debt?
it wasn't Stephen Colbert, it was John Oliver. He did
Mm,
$15 million of medical debt. He bought it for $60,000 and then forgave it all.
damn,
Wow.
that's crazy.
Because a lot of
Is
those
that
debt companies sell it in bulk. Like they'll get what they can and they'll be like, oh, I have $15 million in debt. Yeah, you want to buy this for $50,000? Okay, there we go. I got $50,000 of this $15 million that I was owed.
Wow.
wow? Oh, good guy John Oliver, right?
Yeah, it was the biggest it was supposed to be like the biggest giveaway in television history, was like the kind of the stunt. But he also proved like he uses a point for that specific segment to talk about how like medical debt is crazy and how debt companies work and how it's all bullshit, and
Mm,
you know. So
Yeah,
like
I
what
mean,
happens if like America has like $1 trillion in debt, and then whoever fucking owns it just buys it for, you know, $1 billion? It's like, all right, well, we forgive it. And then all of a sudden America's not in debt anymore, baby.
yeah, pretty much. But I mean, no one's gonna do that. Also,
what am I doing?
a lot of these, like for example, in the Canada, like it's healthcare is free. It's paid for by the taxpayer, but wait times are long. So that's kind of the caveat, is that free healthcare is nice and everything, but you're going to have long wait times. You're going to have different levels of service in comparison to a capitalist one, where you're able to pay for better service, or you're able to put it onto your insurance pretty much and have your insurance take care of it. Whereas when the government takes care of it, everyone gets the same level of service, and it's not always going to be the best, and you're going to have higher wait times. So it's like all depends on what you're looking for. I will say that it is good to have a baseline of level of tax that is put into the healthcare system. So that way people that don't have insurance are able to get healthcare. And if people want better healthcare, they obviously have the option to go through their insurance or just pay out of pocket. But that's just me. And yeah.
Shut your
That's
common
just you.
mouth.
Yeah, it's probably just me.
That sounds a lot like communism to me.
That's like communism to me.
Yeah, I
Fuck
bet
no.
that's how it was during the Cold War era. Everyone's sitting down having a drink or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what, guys? I think we should all split the bill equally. Everyone just like looks at him and is like, "Is he a commie? Is he a commie? Is this guy Like, what's this guy talking about? Equally? We're not splitting the bill equally.
Equally.
Equally?
Yeah,
Interesting. It sounds like what a communist would say.
And I bet that same guy ordered the lobster while everyone else got fucking burgers, and he's like, guys, we
Yeah.
should split the bill evenly. Yeah, that'll be great.
we,
I got a great idea. Let's split it evenly. Yeah.
yeah, he
Great.
ended up killing
Alright.
himself later with 2 shotgun bullets to the back of the head.
Yeah.
Oh, the hill
Yeah.
kill treatment. Hell yeah.
Yep. Like, no oligarchs in our dinner table, sir.
Fucking commies.
Down with the king. All right, fellas. Is there anything else y'all want to talk about today?
No, I think we
Uh-oh.
can wait until next week when everyone's screaming about World War III for the 5th time in a row.
It's not gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. Stop asking for it to happen. Also, make
Stop
sure to
trying to make
invest
World War
all
III
of your
thing.
stock into Boeing. Invest all of your stock into Boeing.
I don't know.
If you don't invest all your stock into Boeing, I can't promise you're gonna make the money you wish you could have made 3,000 years ago.
I put my stock into the hitman they hire instead.
That's
Yeah,
a
listen.
much better idea. That guy's
I'm
getting,
actually-
he's getting some work done.
I don't know about you guys. I'm investing in monkey flu. That's the next big election virus. If monkey flu coin doesn't go to the moon, then I'm giving up on everything.
I'll invest in whatever Nancy Pelosi invests in.
Oh, yo, actually, fucking great idea.
All right.
There's an app for that. There is an app
I
for
know.
that.
I know.
Is there?
Yeah.
The Nancy Pelosi Stock Exchange?
Hell yeah.
It's just one button on the phone. It just calls her phone immediately. Hello? Like, is this Nancy? Who is this? Who are you? Why are you calling me? Like, what are you? Just tell me what your stocks are real quick, please. Please, I'm on the stock exchange. I need your help. Like, can you stop calling my phone? It's you and every 100 people calling my phone asking about what stock I should buy. I don't care. Leave me alone. Like, this is why you're not in the government anymore, Nancy.
She still is. She still very much is.
Okay. Any more deranged rants before we end today's session, or what?
Yeah, invest in Bingo Bungus coin as well.
Oh God. Oh no. Okay, I think that's
Alright.
good.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Alright.
Goodbye.
I
Goodbye.
do think, yeah, goodbye. I do think
Goodbye,
that
yeah.
next time we need to have tinfoil hats that people put on when they say